Hey there, Allan. I know that you'll be back. Tell you what, I'll be reading part 3 for you. So, let's get started. My ex left her reflection behind. Written by Evilartbunny. Narrated by Akutabi. With Zori Audio VA and an anonymous narrator. I have two problems that I'm always a little embarrassed admitting to, because there are always those who believe neither to be real problems. The first problem is that I have not had a long-term relationship in a long time. The second is that my house is haunted. Cute people lecture me about priorities and handing me unsolicited life advice. I mention these things more to explain how the third of 5 entities came to join my house. This was coming to a year of me living here. By the time I had set up a working, if uncomfortable, living arrangement with the first 2 entities. Knox, the first entity, communicates by creaking the house. 1 for yes, 2 for no. If I enter a room and I hear 2 knocks, I leave and return later. Other than that, communication between the 2 of us is seldom. The second entity lives in the basement and is appeased by the milk and bread I leave out for it every night. Truth be told, I do not know what guarantees my offerings confer upon me, if any. I know it wanders around the house some nights, in some form. Because of that, I only leave my bedroom out of absolute necessity once it's dark. It has left me unmolested in the sanctuary of my bedroom. Or perhaps that's because I have left a line of iron dust along the threshold of my door. It's surprising how quickly we can normalize into lousy situations. There I was, having gotten so used to the little rituals in my life that kept the shadows at bay. I was beginning to divert my attention to other things, like the absence of a love life. I'm not great with online dating. My social circles have been frozen since graduation. Plus, I work from home mostly. Added to the challenge of finding dates, I was constantly wondering how on earth I would take a girl home to a haunted house. And that's when I met Ella. Ella was the exact opposite of a girl I will bring home to meet my mother. She had tattoos and piercings in all the wrong places. Or all the right places if you're me. She smoked, wore heavy makeup, and her thick, wavy hair was dyed electric purple. We met at a geek convention in another city. She was a friend of a friend of a friend, and we learned both live in the same city. We somehow ended up hanging around the same group because of the shared hometown, and although I couldn't take my eyes off her, I had no idea how to strike up a conversation with her. My friend Vivian, however, forever my wingman, and noticing me eyeing Ella but doing nothing about it, just happened to let it spill in a conversation that I live in a haunted house.
Really?
Ella squealed, her pink contact lenses eyes locking with mine properly for the first time. I actually don't like talking about the condition of my house. It's like thinking about a room you should have cleaned up months ago, except now the pile of clothes on the floor has been laying there for so long, it's developed a taste for human flesh. Yeah, I found myself saying, really haunted.
I don't actually know why you still live there.
Vi added. Ella clapped her hands like a little girl.
Oh my god, alright, you have to tell me everything.
And so I did. She listened intently, gasping and nodding all the time. I don't remember any girl giving me this much attention.
Listen, you may not believe me, but I have been living with my guardian spirit and a whole bunch of other spirits my entire life. I have a third eye, and I can see other things that people can't. It is so rare to find a real haunting. Can I please visit your house?
Ella begged. That is when several alarm bells had already gone off in my head. Firstly, who on earth goes seeking out these kinds of things with such glee? Secondly, bringing someone into the house who was eager to get a reaction from the entities sounded as good an idea as poking a bear. Knocks have proven benign. The basement thing, on the other hand, I was certain had the capacity to maim and kill. But in a city far away from home, under bright sunshine and the rapt attention of a beautiful girl, I said, I suppose so. As the convention went on, Ella became quite friendly with me, yet it still surprised me that she said yes when I asked her out on a date. We went out on our first date the evening the convention ended. Before we parted, she gave me a kiss on the cheek, and I promised her a tour of my house. A week later, on a Friday afternoon, she came over. When she got out of her car, she was rapt. I don't know what she saw when she looked at my house, but I guess it was everything she had hoped for. Now that it was actually happening, I was very nervous as I brought her around the place. Knox stayed strangely quiet. Perhaps he was more used to apprehensive people rather than over-enthusiastic ones. However, upon entering the laundry, 2 sharp raps sounded from the walls. Ella laughed excitedly and put her hand over her mouth. I quickly grabbed her by the shoulders and led her out the room. I hesitated at the basement door, but she really wanted to go down there. It was the main attraction after all. I had been down there before, but that was before my last harrowing experience. Since then, I actually not entered. It was still daylight and the basement thing seemed dormant by day. So, not believing what I was doing for a pretty girl, I agreed to a very short visit down. I warned her to keep her voice low and that she had to promise me if I say to leave, we will leave. She promised, and so very cautiously, I opened the basement door. I had not fixed the broken light in there, but there was enough light from the kitchen we could see all the way down. Holding her hand, I led her down the stairs. It was as I remember it. Old dusty tables with chairs stacked upside down on them against one wall. And a little further on the opposite wall, an odd opening jutted into the wall. I have never understood what that place was for. You may have fed a small fish into it if it was lying on its side, were it not for the yellow painted diagonal scaffolding that crisscrossed it. That space was its lair. Ella suddenly went ahead of me and approached it. I gripped her hand and she turned to look at me with a smile and intent in her eyes. I shook my head at her, but she let my hand fall and approached the space noiselessly. She placed her hand just within the forbidden area and beamed to herself. I would have grabbed her and forced her out of the basement had I not been terrified of waking the entity with noise and clamor. To my relief, Ella retreated, seemingly satisfied. She reached back and holding my hand again, we left the basement. Once we were out and I had shut the basement door, Ella burst into squeals of joy.
That was amazing! I have never felt such an aura. Trust me, I have spent nights in so many abandoned buildings and so many graveyards. Most of everything is rubbish, but oh my god, you have the real deal.
It was about 4 in the evening then. It was still light, but for the last few months, I tended to have dinner early so that I could retreat to my bedroom well before night. This led to an odd puzzle I've been musing over. If I chose to bring Ella out for dinner, I might be returning to the house well after dark, which was not preferable. If we ate at home, I will have to ask Ella to leave early, which seems somewhat rude and against my own wish to spend time with her. Ella provided the solution before I even presented the options to her.
Would you mind if I stayed the night?
I gulped nervously. Well, I could cook us a simple early dinner, and I guess we could watch a movie in my room. It's the, safest place in the house after dark. She nodded enthusiastically with bright, shining eyes. I'll spare everyone the details of everything, but let's just say being in a haunted house really excited her. Something weird happened the next morning. I went into the attached bathroom and brushed my teeth. Looking in the mirror, I saw Ella pop her head round the door as if to look at me. It was only for a moment, and then she ducked out. I finished brushing my teeth and went back into the bedroom. Ella was under the covers, still looking asleep. You can use the bathroom now.
What?
She said, sleepily turning around. Oh, I thought you wanted to use the bathroom. She shook her head, her purple hair rippling across her face. Before I could pursue the matter any further, she rose up, letting the blanket fall off her and pull me into a kiss. Any questions I had blanketed out of my mind. Like I said, my house really seemed to excite her. She was back a couple weeks later. She would have returned sooner, but she had work stuff. She worked at an event center, and a couple of galleries and talks had taken place that fortnight. When she got out of her car, she was wearing an outfit that most certainly got my blood running. That excitement was executed at gunpoint when she opened her passenger door to reveal a most terrifying object. An all-weather doll. I'm even more petrified of dolls than I am of the dark. That's saying something.
Hey, I want you to meet my lifelong friend, Edward. He's my spirit guide, and he's so happy to be here.
She said, introducing the doll. Edward was a thing of my nightmares. Seemingly made of pink plastic, he was 4 feet in length and wore a faded sleeping gown and matching nightcap that may once have spotted a pattern of some sort, but now just looked like a blotch with disease. His face was worse. The paint was stained and smeared in all manners, giving the doll the impression of having been melted in a fire, as well as mauled by a bear. It seemed to glare at me with his jet black eyes, and his smile was that of a snake spotting dinner.
He was my nan's.
That's, great. Hi, Ed. You're not bringing him inside, are you? Ella smiled at me and put a hand on my arm. She stood beside me, turning to face the creepy doll sitting in the car. Then she whispered in my ear,
Don't call him Ed. He doesn't like it. It's Edward. And of course I'm bringing him into the house.
Look, I really don't think this is a good idea.
It's okay. Edward can move around a bit on his own, but he's never hurt me. And there's this seal.
Ella left me to lift Edward's nightcap. A strange symbol was seared into the bald plastic head. She put the cap back on.
Nan told me he's safe as long as the seal remains intact.
He moves around?
Just a little.
He's not coming into the house. Ella made a grimace on her face. It said, really? And coward at the same time. Then she suddenly had a listening look on her face as she leaned in towards Edward.
Huh? Right. Edward says he understands and that he'll stay in the car.
She closed the car door, then looking mildly disappointed, she gave me a smile, grabbed my hand and led me into my own home. I noticed she hadn't locked her car, but didn't say anything as I felt I'd gotten as much compromise as I was going to get. I could feel the doll's eyes on me all the way back to the door. We had finished watching a movie together in bed, and it was close to midnight. Ella was lying against me, and I could tell she was bored. Suddenly she sat up and with a mischievous grin on her face and said,
Let's go!
Go where?
Explore your house. Duh.
Ella, I know you're really into this kind of thing, but the basement thing isn't to be messed with.
I have protection.
She said dismissively.
Come on, let's go. I can't believe you're not curious.
I'm serious, not curious. And what do you mean by protection?
Look, I don't want to get into it, but I used to be in a sisterhood, and we made deals. It was kind of messed up, and I got out fine. But some of those contracts were binding, both ways, so things don't mess with me. And I have Edward. Come on.
Her plastic friend's protection was not convincing. I didn't budge from my bed.
All right, fine,
she said, while gleaming her eyes.
I'm going by myself. You wait here.
What? Wait, no! But she already flung the door open and run out of the room. It had been a while since I faced the darkness of my house. I heard her footsteps going down the stairs. Then she said something I couldn't quite make out. I waited frozen on the bed, listening for more sounds. There was only silence. When I couldn't take it anymore, I crept out of bed and approached the door. Ella? I said, my voice hoarse. There was no response from downstairs. I looked on the floor and noticed her foot had scraped my line of iron fillings that I had hoped served as a barrier against the basement thing. I quickly grabbed a small hand broom I kept nearby and swept the fillings back into a neat line against the door threshold. Then I took a step over the black dusty line into the corridor. 2 grunts shuddered through the house. 2 for no. It was knocks, but I have never heard a sound like that. Deep and loud. I got the impression a cat bristling, trying to appear 3 times its size. Was Knox angry or scared? The last time I went against Knox's advice had been to save my niece from a thing in the basement, but the circumstances felt different now. My instincts were screaming. I made my way to the stairs. At the top of the landing, I flicked on the stair light. Edward stood at the bottom of the stairs, staring up at me. Fuck! I yelled, falling over. I scrambled backwards till my back hit the wall. Edward's eyes appeared black and empty like those of a shark. Ella? I cried out. I thought we agreed the doll was to stay in the car. There was no reply. Ella? I called out again. I'm going back to my room and locking the door. Still no response. If you want in, just knock on the door and tell me, okay? Picking myself up, I ran back into my room, constantly glancing back at the stairs, half expecting Edward to appear on the landing. I slammed the door behind me, flipped the lock, and slid to the floor, breathing hard. Hours went by, and I didn't hear a sound for the rest of the night. Not even a creak of wood from knocks. I think I fell asleep with my back against the door because I suddenly realized it was dawn. My windows were gray, and I could make out the silhouette of treetops, and I really needed to use the bathroom. Hoping the morning brought some sort of safety, I left my vigil over the door and went to the bathroom. Just in the middle of my house, I saw movement in the mirror. I couldn't see directly into my room, but I could see into the bedroom via the mirror. It was Ella. She appeared to have entered the bedroom and was crossing to the other side. To get her phone, I thought. Ella? I called out. Pulling up my pants and flushing the toilet, I hurried out, but Ella wasn't in the room. My room door was locked. How had she gotten in? And how had she gotten out? I didn't see her phone either. Had she taken it downstairs with her last night? I decided my sleep-deprived brain must be playing tricks on me. Frowning, I steeled myself to open the bedroom door. The landing was empty. I stepped out into the corridor, listening for knocks to sound again, but I only heard morning bird song. Very gingerly, I tiptoed to the stairs and looked down. Edward was no longer there. I descended to the ground floor and the house felt very empty. Neither Edward nor Ella were to be seen. And when I checked my driveway, Ella's car was gone. When I had gone through all the rooms just in case Edward was hiding somewhere, I sighed, got my phone and called Ella. She hadn't picked up. I sent her a few messages throughout that morning, but got no reply. Feeling lost about what to do, I began cleaning up the house. But as time went on, I began to get that odd sense I wasn't quite alone. And while Knox was somewhat omnipresent in the house, I hadn't felt spooked by it for a long time. I started to get goosebumps. Someone or something was watching me. My next glimpse of what it was happened in my garage. A long mirror stood against a wall that I had just never found a place for when I moved in. So there it had stayed. I saw Ella in it, poking her head out from one side in the garage entrance. I spun around thinking she had come back, but there was no one there. I went outside but did not see her or her car. I heard a creak from inside the house. Knocks? What was that supposed to mean? A bit later, still feeling lost, I decided I would drive to the supermarket and stock up. The store wasn't far, and being around people miling and shopping made me feel better. The fear from the previous night had turned into disappointment that Ella had just vanished on me. I was driving home when I glanced into the rearview mirror, and Ella stared back at me from the back seat. I screamed, accidentally stepped on the gas, and sent the car up the curb. The car jolted to a stop before I hit a small tree, and I somehow managed to unfasten my belt, tumble out the door, and scramble away from the vehicle, but I stopped after a few feet. What if Ella was stuck in the car and needed help? I returned to my car cautiously, as thought it would blow up any second. But the backseat was empty. It wasn't just that Ella shouldn't have been in the backseat of the car. It was the expression she had. She's been smiling at me with a deranged look in her eyes. I checked out my tires and they appeared to be intact. The car looked drivable, but I didn't want to drive it. I didn't even want to test it. Instead, I called Vi. "Hey, I really need your help." She must have heard the tension in my voice. Without questions, she rolled up by me 20 minutes later.
Whoa, you okay?
She said, getting out of her car. Yeah, I'm fine. Just don't think I can drive right now. V frowned at me, then looked at my car.
I can take you home, but what are you going to do about your car?
We were in a small housing estate, and the road itself was quiet. No one had come out to see my accident. "You reckon I could leave it here for the night?" I asked. V shrugged.
Well, at least park it straight. Here, give me your keys.
I handed V the keys, hoping it would be safe for her inside the car. She parked the car without incident and came out. I felt relieved she came out fine, but then I felt sick. V gave me a concerned look as she walked back to me.
Hey, what's going on? Really?
I could only stare at the ground, not even sure where to start. Evening was coming, and shadows were drawing long across the ground. "Do you think I could stay at yours tonight?" I asked V. I don't think my house is safe to go back to. I don't think I should be alone. V put her arms around me and led me back to her car. I totally forgot about my groceries. I sat in the passenger seat and was silent the whole drive, doing my best not to look into any mirrors. When I reached inside V's apartment unit, I just broke down and cried. V hugged me and rubbed my back as though I were a child. After a bit, while holding back the sobs, I told V what had transpired over the last 2 weeks. She nodded in an understanding manner and didn't interrupt. At the end of it, she took a look around her room, stood up and started putting stuff away. I realized she was clearing away anything that had a reflection in it. When she was done, she sat opposite of me and took out her phone.
Well,
She said in a pragmatic tone.
I think it's time you got some help.
"A psychologist?"
No, I was thinking more exorcist.
"Oh,"
Maybe a priest or a pastor?
V said, musing. I decided to open my phone and start searching too, just as I was about to press the first link in my search result. My phone started ringing. "Ella?" I said, putting the phone to my ear. V looked across at me, eyebrows raised.
Hey,
Ella said on the other end.
can we meet? Like somewhere in town?
"Yeah," I said slowly. "I have questions,"
I know, I'm sorry.
Ella replied. She gave me an address to a cafe in town.
I'll tell you what I can when we meet.
She said, and abruptly put down the phone. V had her arms crossed when I looked up at her. "Could you give me another ride?"
She better have a good explanation.
V said, getting up and grabbing her jacket. The cafe had a small park opposite of it. V said she'd sit on a bench at the edge of the park, keeping me in sight. Ella was already sitting at a table out on the footpath with a cup of tea before her. She wasn't drinking it and looked embarrassed. I took a seat opposite of her. "Hey," I started.
Hey.
She said softly, trying to give me a smile. "So, you've been gone for less than a day, but I'm already seeing you everywhere I go," I said with a nervous grin. I've made worse jokes.
Yeah.
Ella said with an incredulous laugh.
I know what you mean.
"Want to tell me about that?"
It's Edward.
Ella said in a half whisper.
He doesn't like you. Really doesn't like you.
That made me grit my teeth in anger for some reason. The feeling is mutual.
He doesn't want us to spend time with each other anymore.
Ella said, staring into her cup. Have you considered that taking relationship advice from a possessed doll is incredibly unhealthy?
Says the guy who refuses to move out of his haunted house.
I sigh. Touché.
Look, I'm sorry. I like you. I really do. You're a really sweet guy. You deserve so much better. But Edward is all the family I have left.
Family? It was Ella's turn to sigh.
I'm sorry, but I have to listen to him.
There were tears in her eyes now. No, you don't, Ella, I said, reaching out to hold her hand. Her hand shrank back away from mine.
He let loose one of them on you,
she said quietly. I paused.
In my sad, pathetic life, I've done a lot of stupid things, and some bad ones. Some of those things have led to spirits being attached to me. And there's always Edward. I was hoping, since you already live in a haunted house, you would find me and the bizarre things I come with acceptable, I guess.
Ella, I said. She raised her hand to cut me off. She took a shaky breath, then mumbled something. I only caught the start of her sentence.
He unleashed the...
Unleashed the what?
Its name means the one who walks the mirrors.
Ella said a fraction louder.
It was one of the spirits Edward protected me from. I think he trapped it within himself. Now he's let it go. It'll haunt your reflections, traveling from one mirror to the next. It can even come out, I think.
My blood ran cold. I stopped reading. Can it be stopped? Ella shook her head, tears streaming down her face.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I've said too much already.
Then before I could stop her, she ran for her car. Wait! Why does it look like you? What does it want? I cried after her. She didn't answer. As she got into her car and started her engine, I saw Edward, strapped into the passenger seat. I could feel those venomous black eyes boring into me. As Ella drove past, I swear that thing turned to stare at me. Have you ever felt so scared your gut feels like it's going to empty its contents in both directions at the same time? Yet at the same time, a desperate anger lit a small flame against the hopelessness I felt inside. It was that smile on Edward's face that did it. It was a smile of victory. Edward had gotten the girl and destroyed the competition. Except I wasn't quite destroyed yet, was I? My muscles felt like they were made of jelly, but somehow I stood up in defiance with my fists clenched, staring at Ella's car as it drove out of sight. V had crossed the road and was approaching me.
Hey, what happened? You okay?
I turned to V. I was shriveling badly, but I couldn't tell from dread or fury. I have a plan, I told her through gritted teeth. That goddamn doll. It thought I didn't remember what the Simone's head looked like. Later on my phone, I think around 10:30, I stood with V in the living room. She was holding a simple hand mirror. It was one of her spares. I was preparing a couple of other items on a countertop.
You're mad. This is the dumbest thing you've ever done, and I've seen you do some really dumb shit.
Yeah, I grimaced. Knocks had been silent. There was no presence from the basement either. It was as if both understood what I was doing was important, and they were giving me room to do so. V had been uncomfortable entering the house. She had a bad experience with Knox once. I told her she didn't need to do this with me, but she insisted that someone had to save my ass if everything went to hell. I felt it approaching. The feeling that I was being washed deepened. I put my finger to my lips and V simmered down. Silently, I motioned for V to pass me the hand mirror. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and held it up so I could see my face in it. I then angled it so I could see over my shoulder. Behind me was the archway to the kitchen, which was lit in a soft orange. I didn't have to wait long. Something that might have been Ella popped its head to the right of the arch, then ducked away. The hair on my neck stood on their ends. A few minutes crept by and V was shifting uncomfortably by me, eyes darting from one shadow to another. But I kept my eyes on the mirror. Then, even thought I was suspecting it. It was all I could do not to run screaming as I saw a pale face with purple hair peer over my shoulder. It smiled at me, but a thin and white-black smile, and stared at me with unblinking eyes. It didn't really look like Ella this up close. I frowned back at it, waiting to see what it would do. Think my defiance angered as its smile turned into a baring of teeth that were too long to be human. I heard V gasp by my side. I think she had just seen it in the mirror. Her gasp made me take my eyes off it for a split of a second. When I glanced back, I saw a white hand shooting out and filling the whole mirror as if to grab my head. I let go of the mirror and ducked to avoid the grasping hand. The mirror and I tumbled upon the carpet floor. V shrieked. And then it was quiet. I got up and looked down. The mirror had landed face up. I could see the thing thrashing about inside it. It appeared to be snarling and screaming, but I could hear nothing. Its background seemed to have frozen too. Rather than the ceiling above, the mirror contained the living room and the kitchen archway as it had when I was holding it up. The being was running around the mirror room in a hobbling fashion, but it didn't seem to be able to find a way out. It just kept running back and forth, and then returning to the mirror surface to thump and scream against it once more. I could hear V swearing her head off. Slowly, I knelt down and held the mirror by its handle, lifting it up. I felt like I had a deadly spider in my hands, separated only by a thin glass that was its container.
You're fucking insane. What the actual fuck?
I heard V still going on. On the reverse of the mirror, I had etched into the plastic the symbol I had seen on Edward's scalp. My gamble had worked. I had lured the mirror demon into this mirror, on the off chance the seal would have trapped it within. The theory could have gone wrong at so many levels. What if it required more than just the symbol to turn the mirror into a trap? What if the mirror demon couldn't be trapped the same way as Edward and the doll? What if the mirror demon had used a different mirror to attack me? I don't know. All I know is that it worked. I put the mirror into a soft cloth bag and tightened the drawstring. Then I put the bag into a small safe box I had previously used for my passport and things. I had stuffed it full of padding. I heard the safe box click and model numbers of the combination lock. I also put a padlock into the ring I had for one. On the safe and the padlock, I had again drawn the ceiling symbol with permanent marker. We appeared to have calmed down somewhat. Now the mirror was out of sight.
All right.
She said, trying to draw breath.
Okay, you just caught the fucking thing. Congrats, genius. You won. What now?
I stepped back from the locked safe with the blood still rushing in my ears and my breathing heavy. V was right. I had won. I allowed the feeling of victory to wash over me. For a moment, I felt like I could have taken on the entire world. Then I remembered the thing in the basement, and my courage was somewhat humble. Now I think I'm going to drink a very, very large glass of water. And then one day I'm going to cover this safe in cement. Then I'm somehow going to get on a boat and drop that in the middle of the ocean. A single rap sounded from somewhere in the house. Vivian jumped badly at that. It's okay, I said, putting out a hand to calm her. I think the house was just agreeing with me. Hey, that offer to stay over at yours still open? V nodded at me, looking pale and unconvinced Knox meant her no harm.
Let's say we get out of here then.
I put the safe into a closet, then closed up the house. V followed me close everywhere, and Knox was very polite in not scaring her further. I left extra milk and bread by the basement to thank the thing for the space it had given us that night. I hope it understood the gesture. Then I left my little house of hers, at least for one night. What follows, I guess, is a bit of an epilogue to the whole affair and to prompt questions I am anticipating. Firstly, yes, V is a good friend who I'm supremely blessed to have. I surprised her the week after with a brand new game console I knew she'd been wanting for some time. Then there is the issue of keeping the mirror. Was smashing the mirror kill the thing or release it? I didn't know, and I felt unconfident to test it. So, if I didn't break it, I face a problem of wanting to keep it in sight all the time and not wanting it in sight ever. In the end, I compromised on my own rules. I cooperated with Knox. It did seem as if Knox disliked the thing as much as I did, so collaboration seemed warranted. We found a place in the house it approved of to hide it. I won't say where. Then I've just trusted Knox to guard it and warn me if anything. If anyone's going to ask me what that symbol is, I won't reveal it here. V thinks that it might get cults or something looking for me, and I have enough problems to deal with. Thank you very much. Sorry. I truly hope you don't run into any mirror demons. And finally, was I serious about cementing the mirror and dropping it into an ocean? I was. In fact, I had just found out who was willing to take on the strange job of cementing a mysterious box when other things started to happen. It's not the last time I had to deal with the mirror demon. There's still Entity 4 and 5 to tell you about. And that's today's story, Outlaw. This is part 3 of the Nox universe, made by the wonderful creator Evilartbunny. I'm extremely grateful she let me narrate this story, and even told me the order of it too, so that way nothing gets confused. Well, if you like the story, go ahead and leave a thumbs up and a comment. Let me know which part you like best. And if I earn it, go ahead and subscribe. What are you waiting for? And most importantly, like always, I see y'all on the wasteland. Oh, no. Haha, psych. It's not the end of the story. I got something else very important to tell you. On this story, I had a collab with a very good friend of mine. She will have her links down on the bottom. Be sure to follow both channels. She's a fellow ASMR artist. Yes, surprise, I also do ASMR. I should be doing it more often, but juggling, narrating here, along with other stuff from the other channel, and having a kid, it gets to be a handful. Just to let you know. Well, now it is for real though. And like always, I see y'all on the wasteland.